Okay, Marcus, can we have the pleasure?
Yay.
Hey, welcome, young man. Right, I shall leave the stage and hand it over to you.
Cool. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. So we gathered here all today to talk about going from zero to DevSecOps hero. This goes into many topics, and it's maybe an unusual take, at least from people who usually talk about DevSecOps. It is a more of a security talk, so and some education myth busting. So hopefully you will enjoy it. Otherwise, there's a lot of cat gifs and a lot of memes. So who am I? I'm Marcus. I'm a principal consultant at Contino. I've been there for almost 5 years. I run a newsletter too, and you can find me on Twitter. Also, that cat gif is a consultant life, travel, a lot of travel. Sadly, not anymore. Cool. I work for Contino. If you want to join us, of course. Agenda. So, first of all, what are your goals? If you're trying to go to hero, why are you trying? You need that persistent motivation, otherwise you will not get there. I will then go into how to start that journey to become a hero. We'll then cover some learning myths, because you might be not effective in your learning. That's something I encountered quite often. Then obviously everyone's favorite topic, which certs, which learning platforms, should I get the CISSP, should I get OCSP, should I get the AWS security specialty? All answers will be revealed. We'll then take care of keeping up to date and having your skills sharp, like joining this meetup and gathering. And then we'll go over how to bring others on that learning. This will be the chapter where I will talk about enterprise, like learning paths, mandatory learning, different common problems, and how to build them. And then last but not least, some common issues that I also found. There's also a few other chapters that are hidden in here. So, what are your goals? Are you trying to find a new job? Are you trying to move up in your organization? Do you want to just get better at what you currently do? Are you trying to develop an education program in your organization? Are you just curious on how to learn effectively? Do you want to just get certified but don't know which cert to go for, or what platform to buy a subscription for? Or you just enjoy my talks because they're full of memes and cats? If any of these apply to you, hopefully I can actually give you good content. So these two slides I actually put in just like 10 minutes ago, because someone asked the question, what is DevSecOps? I kind of assume that everyone will know at this point, but I thought it probably will go good and I can reuse one of my favorite pictures, which is this. Obviously, like when you have an audience in an auditorium, people have a laugh, a chuckle. So I'm not sure if I'm being funny. Anyway, so the classical thing that we had was you had all these beautiful DevOps teams and everything else, right? And they will start building everything, and they need to go fast, and security always had to clean up all the mess. And that's how we kind of got the DevSecOps. So we all are just a beautiful unicorn, and there's no things to clean up, right? So that's one way to describe it. Another way is this beautiful shift left security, right? So this is something I quite often show as an example of a full end-to-end secure pipeline with every single tool under the sun that you can use to secure your platform, right? So from the left, you do some threat modeling, then you do your scanning in your IDE for that quick feedback, right? Then you have some pre-hooks to scan your secrets. You do some code signing, you do some code review, you have code owners on GitHub, you have branch protections because you don't want to, release without anyone knowing. You then do more secret scanning after the fact because maybe the hooks failed, security in depth. you use your SAS tooling. Again, these tools are just like, look, I kind of prefer Verico, but there's many others like check marks and whatnot, right? Probably just not Fortify. Then you have Snyk for all your license and app dependency scanning, particularly if you're a Node.js shop. Once you build your full application, you will like add that supply chain security, because you don't want to end up on the news again on the register. So supply chain security in Toto, Graphius, all of that. You properly use containers. You want either something from Aquasec or from Palo Alto, Twistlock. You then have all those artifacts in X-Ray. Then you have some infrastructure code. You scan it with a beautiful tool that is Terraform Compliance, or with Chekhov, that got bought by Palo, by the way. You then do some more runtime security. Once it's all live, you do some desk scanning. You then have some more agents like the Prisma agent or the cloud compute scanning. You have your SOC, obviously running Splunk, because what else? And then you do your pen test with someone like NCC or F-Secure. So this is the full kind of life cycle. This is something almost every enterprise builds. I built this multiple times. So hopefully you kind of see, like if you were to say, what's my job as a DevSecOps person, this can be one type of a job, but I want the industry to kind of move in a different direction, because this actually slows down development, and there are better ways to do this in sometimes. So properly try not to overload your shift left, right? So where to start on your learning journey? Also, I kind of properly realized the GIFs are probably quite slow when I show them via video. Cool. So where to start? Where are you currently? Assess your skills, right? You have to kind of know if you're that kind of junior beginner, or if you're expert beginner, which is a different topic, which area you're interested in, right? So there's application security, network security, cloud native security, cloud security. I always make a distinction, like cloud is AWS, Azure, GCP security. Cloud native is Kubernetes, containers, Lambda, serverless. I make that distinction, quite different skills in a way. How much time you can spare, right? Like if learning is something you have to put in, if you want to be effective at learning, you have to do it quite often and quite in small increments. Do some research in the areas that you're interested, kind of understand the landscape, right? There are the unknown unknowns, and you need to kind of minimize those so you kind of know where you want to go and what's available. And then obviously join a community, right? Going with this together is obviously a lot more helpful. So, common myths. This is a section I really wanted to do, because there's a lot of misconceptions about learning, and I think a lot of people are being tricked. A lot of bad habits were developed when you were in university or in school, and they're very pervasive. Like there's a lot of good YouTube videos you can watch on the topic by like famous psychology researchers and education researchers. So here is a non-exhaustive list of everything I kind of gathered. One of the most common one is learning styles. So on the learn, you can see the VAC. You are an auditory learner. You are a visual learner. You're a kinesthetic learner. Like you're never going to touch that CI/CD pipeline physically. So there's no way you can learn it by touch unless you count typing as touch. You're a visual learner, so like watching the slides actually teaches you, or maybe it's my voice that teaches you. There is no proof. There are preferences. People obviously prefer either reading or listening to books. But that preference doesn't mean that actually that's you're stronger and you should adopt it in any particular ways. Another bit, which is quite crucial, do not try to reread when you are actually learning, right? If you are rereading and you think, oh, now I actually understood, you didn't understood it, you recognized it because you read it before. And it's very important to kind of realize that recognizing what you saw before versus you actually knowing what you saw before, two different things. The other bit, if you have highlight markers or you constantly highlight on your Kindle, that also doesn't really help, because it just sets kind of points in the map in your brain but it actually doesn't put that content. You won't be like, if I asked you to recall from memory a highlight you did, you usually will fail, and you will also not be able to explain the concept. Left, right, left brain, right brain. One is more analytical. The like techies like to always say they're more like right brain. That also is not true. 10% of the brain. No, we use pretty much most of our side of the brain. Just depends on when we do it. 10,000 rule. This is something by Malcolm Gladwell that was very popularized because, you know, violinists take 10 hours to become experts. Not really. There are shortcuts. There are like proper focused work is more important. Otherwise, like, yeah, it's just impossible. And also tools, something like Kubernetes, having 10,000 hours in Kubernetes, that's actually quite a lot. You probably can be productive in a lot less. So that kind of expertise is not always true. Like you can repeat the same hour 10,000 times and you're not going to be much further away. Don't praise intelligence. This is a big problem with a lot of techies, like particularly if you were smart in school. Some might relate. You will get praised that you are intelligent by the thing. That's actually you probably lost out in school because of that, because what is much more helpful and people who succeed more in the future is people who get told that they were praised for hard work, right? If it didn't come easy to you and you actually had to work, then you won't give up a lot, like not as fast, right? When you see a challenge, you just know it's a matter of time and work instead of you don't have a natural ability. So that's one. The learning pyramid. Like you learn only 10% if you read, you learn if it's 20%, if it's audiovisual, if you discuss it, it's 50%. You can discuss a point to no end. If you didn't gather any information by reading a book, it might not be very useful. So not much of that. Obviously, practice and doing and teaching is like you can't really like those are more productive, but those percentages don't really make sense. Another one that was fun, like I think 5 or 10 years ago, but I think I still see them, is brain games. Like basic example, if you are an expert in Sudoku, that doesn't make you an expert in Vault or Terraform, or that you will pick it up faster. Their brain elasticity doesn't work like that. If you really want to go and not have Alzheimer's when you get old, all evidence is showing that you should go and like learn a new language or learn a new hobby. That actually keeps the brain a lot more active. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. And also don't try to kind of memorize, try to figure it out by yourself. And also try to gain all the information from like someone else, right? Most people try to learn from their own mistakes, and that's not always the best way to learn, right? A lot of people went through this path. Like this presentation is about a lot of learnings I had, and there's no reason you have to make the same mistakes, because you cannot commit. Like the humanity only got to the same place we are now in because we don't keep repeating not eating the mushrooms that will kill us. So please kind of try to learn. Cool. So what works, right? So we had a lot of myths, but what does actually work? So sleep. I cannot like if some people might not know this, I'm famous for working a lot of hours, but there's one thing I don't skimp on, which is sleep. I go to bed at usually the same hour, but I always kind of wake up without an alarm clock. There is an emergency alarm clock for when I have to start work, but in most cases I sleep and try to wake up naturally for like whatever hours I need to do. Usually it's 7, usually it's 8, like depends. But without sleep, there is literally nothing. There's no coffee fix. There is nothing you can do. You can go to the gym and like you can take a nap. Nothing will fix it. Sleep. Another thing, quiz yourself when you read a chapter. Quizzing is one of the best ways to learn. So instead of trying to like highlight or reread, just you read the chapter. But what was it about? Like, what did you learn? What can you answer? The other bit is spaced repetition. Spaced repetition is when you learn let's say You learn the concept, then you repeat it in like a few hours, then you repeat it in 1 or 2 days, then you repeat it after 2 weeks, and then you repeat it like in like 6 months. And that really leaves a long lasting thing, because the brain learns the best when you forget and then you have to retrieve it. So you want to forget, like the more you forget, the better, because the more it's about retrieving it from when you forgot. We love stories. If you can build a story about like some difficult topic in CISSP, or you're just like imagining that you're having a conversation in a bar about the topic, or kind of some story, so it's not abstract words on the paper, it usually really helps for you. Stuart put in there a really good note. Feynman technique is actually also very good. And last thing is pre-test. This is my favorite thing to do, is do mock exams before you even start, right? So let's say you're trying to do your AWS SA Pro exam. Like, for example, like I used to do, I would watch 40 hours of Upload Guru, then do the mock exam, then do the main exam. That's not actually the best way to learn. For the second time I was doing a different exam, I did the mock exam. I didn't score that well. I didn't pass it. It was pretty good, like 50% or so, but I didn't pass it, and I knew which areas I was failing at. And because I knew which areas I was failing at, it was very easy for me to kind of fix and go and pick where I have to actually be, right? So do tests, don't worry about failing. Nobody's watching over your back. Nobody actually knows. You don't have to tell the whole like 67 people here, right? So the free paths. So this is something we have in Contino, where we kind of set those that way. It's not prescriptive or anything. This is just how I see marrying the traditional security with kind of DevSecOps, right? So in traditional security, you have your red team, you have your blue team, probably everyone knows, and attack, defend. Another one that I actually like, because I see that a lot of with customers right now, is audit. If you have audit skills, you're gonna be a massive asset to your company. I cannot stress that enough. It's super boring. Nobody wants to do it. It is extremely important if you want to have production workloads. Auditing, excellent skill that almost nobody will have in the industry. The other bit is you can have this purple team, which is like a mix between red and blue. So if you really want to see the pyramid, that's quite useful. But we internally have training paths based on red team, blue team, and audit. So let's start off, and let me scare you with this. I'll give you a segue. I'll take a drink to analyze how beautiful this diagram is and how complicated. If you thought like regular cloud certification is difficult, like look at all of this mess. So at the top, you see GSC, which is the GX security expert. That is one of the most prestigious certifications you can have. I think it costs, because it has so many prerequisites, it will cost you about 50,000 pounds, I think, to sit it. So I hope your company has a very nice budget to put you on that. The other bit is CISSP, which is quite popular. And I think when I was doing some LinkedIn research, I think almost like 50% of all CISOs I looked at had the CISSP. So if you're trying to move up in the ranks as a manager or anything like that, CISSP is kind of there, a standard. And then there's a lot of other certifications and whatnot. You probably want the more low level ones are the basics, and the higher you go in this diagram, the more difficult they are. Some of the crest ones are interesting, but we will jump into what are actually like, where should you focus? Because a lot of them are specialty, like juniper ones. So best certs. If you are on the red team, you should do OSCP, which is Offensive Security Certified Professional. Otherwise, you do the GSC if you are money rich. You can do the CREST if you wanted, if you are working for a pen testing company. And you also need to be a certified cyber professional if you want to work for a lot of the government contracts. If you are on the blue team, get any of the cloud certificates. There is also a BTL one, which is a blue team SEC certificate that's very new, very niche. But it's nice to see like a more SOC related certification. Otherwise, get something more classical like a CISSP or a CISSM if you are more in a managerial positions. Audit team, ISACA CRISC, get ISO certified if you really can kind of deal with those boring spreadsheets. But those are very like unique skills, but they're very useful because you do need to understand how that all. And there's like massive innovation that's happening to remove all the spreadsheets and have something like called just-in-time controls and live audit, real-time audit and whatnot, right? So you don't fill out the spreadsheets every year. So obviously we will go because and cover all the beautiful things. So OSCP, this is the one that I am right now studying for. All my evenings and all my time is quite filled out with studying for this. I actually failed this exam. So like almost everyone fails this exam because it is extremely difficult. It is 24 hours. You essentially get someone via video, looks at you, as usual, proctored exams, right? And they give you VPN credentials. You log into a portal. You get a few server IPs, and that's it. And you have to go and hack them and own them. They might be Linux boxes. They might be Windows boxes. But you have to hack, and there's literally next to no tips, no nothing. Either you have the skills, you know how to use Nmap and everything else, you can scan. You cannot use Metasploit. Automatic exploitation tools are not allowed. And then after you're super knackered after the exam, usually it's recommended that you sleep during the exam and don't go crazy like no sleep 24 hours driven on Red Bull. And then after it, you have to make good notes while you were doing it, and then you have to write the report because that's what you will do if you were an actual pen tester, right? So it's quite expensive to do. I highly recommend that you take the 365 one. This is relatively newly available. Like I had to pay for the 90 days of lab access. Usually like life happens, you are able only to do like 60 days of 90 days. So this is much better value. You also always fail on the first time. So this gives you immediately that ease of use. OffSec Academy is essentially their old retired boxes, which is similar to some other platforms I will show you. So yes, try harder, as they say. GSCGX. So this is the most prestigious thing. This is kind of a goal. This is something I want to achieve in the future once I have all that money or someone to pay all that money, because this is like a single certificate from. So these are SANS certificates. SANS is the most famous kind of training provider in the security industry. Essentially, it's 7,000, 10,000 pounds per course. It is expensive. And if you want to gain the highest level certification, you essentially need, for example, the prereqs are GSEC, GSIG, GCAA, and 2 golds. The golds are writing papers, actual security papers that have to be approved. But you will be the expert. There's only 258 people. I just checked before I made this slide. It's the most elite kind of club you could get into. So it's kind of like a lot of people have those 16 AWS certs, but this is the real thing. So if your company can afford it, start like go do at least the GSEC. Like there's a lot of people with the GSEC, but it's still a very, very good and recognized certificate. and not in CISSP. This is always comes up if you search for like which certificate I shall do in security. CISSP will be kind of there. It went through many iterations. It used to be, I think, 250 questions in 6 hours. Nowadays, they kind of made it smaller. There's an automated thing that figures out which questions to get. Those are all the domains. Those books are massive. There's a lot of courses, but like a lot, very often HR will block you if you don't have CISSP. Kind of like if you don't have a bachelor degree, there are jobs where just automated filtering out of candidates will not let you into the door, and you will have to like reach out direct, right? So if you ever are applying for jobs where it's like an automated form and not directly via some recruiters and emails, if they like, it will just reject you if they don't see CISSP or bachelor degree in your thing. But this is like it gives you an interesting overview, a lot of the kind of lingo, a lot of regular, like more traditional security people use. So that's something you can get. My biggest kind of thing and insight, particularly if you are in security right now and you want to get reskilled, is get a security cert in cloud. Get any of these. Probably you get the AWS or Azure one because there's just more jobs for that from what we're seeing with our customers. But there's just not enough security professionals who understand cloud, like AWS IAM or Azure AD conditional access. It's a massive gap, right? A lot of people can talk fully about like how to do which ciphers to use or what's asymmetric or symmetric encryption, but they cannot answer to you how you should rotate your CMK keys, right? And that's where you should get them. They're quite also cheap. They're only like, compared to all the water nonsense, like you just pay $200. There's a lot of good courses about it. So like if you really are struggling for jobs or you want very well paid like positions, please just do that, and the door is open. Like most people I interview don't have any of these, and it's always hard to, and you ask them, why do you want a security role in cloud? And then they just cannot, like, this is a conversation starter, right? It doesn't mean you know actually how to do the job, but it's a good conversation starter. Another one, this is a secret. This is top secret. This is like, if you have it and you apply, particularly like if you apply with us, like this is like a secret weapon. A lot of people are now doing audits and whatnot. The CSA has its best points and not. Like the CSA CCM is quite a complicated spreadsheet, but everyone is freaking using it, right? Everyone is using it right now because it maps to every single control framework and everything else, and it's really quite powerful, right? So if you get one of those certs, particularly the CCAK, that's very new, super good, right? Like you will stand out in front of everyone. It also gives you those skills that very few people have. So obviously, just a quick note about all those certs. There is another school of thought that a lot of, like, it will not replace practical experience just because you're there is a type of person that has a lot of certs. That doesn't mean they will do a good job. There is a correlation that usually good people have certs, but like, don't rely just on that, right? Like practical experience will still trump it, right? Like if you did it end to end, let's say you used AWS for the last 10 years, you have Terraform modules, the dime a dozen published on your GitHub profile, that's like, you don't need to do certs, right? Like you have proof enough in your experience to go over it, right? So unless it's for yourself that you're trying to prove something or you want that cert, only then do it, right? Soft skills. Yes, soft skills are actually, I'm not covering in this deck because that is a very big topic of its own, like writing, public speaking, and everything else, right? So it is quite important to know that, like, yes, if you like don't work with people, don't work in a group, there is no future for you. Cool. So platforms. This is quite opinionated. Safari Books Online. This is the one that I will recommend the most. It's also, for some reason, hilariously, the one that most people either didn't hear about and don't have, which is quite interesting. It's also quite expensive nowadays. It was a bit cheaper when they just started out. So some might of you know, Safari actually doesn't sell books anymore, right? So at some point, Safari decided, actually, we're going to go into this online learning and publish all of our book, and it will not get there, right? So if you want to go into like Safari books, they have learning paths, their full library, not just the books by O'Reilly, but everything else. And whatnot, right? So they have constantly online learning, which is like full day or 4 hours. You can see there at the bottom, learning paths. Like if you want to go do that CISSP, they have all the courses from Pearson. So there's a lot of content. So for example, if you search for security by the last 2 years, you can see all the recently published books. So a lot of that is available. And if you want to do more courses, that's also there. Another one. So someone was mourn the passing of Linux Academy, right? So Linux Academy sadly went away, got purchased by iCloud Guru. But from the other side, it means iCloud Guru now has a lot of content. So if you want to learn cloud, there's literally none. Like if you want to go and pass Azure, GCP certs, want to learn Kubernetes, there's not really much better place that you can go for. It is got really expensive. Like I think the highest tier is now £400 or something like that, 389. But yeah, just remember this is quite a lot. But the best thing, if you go for the most expensive path, you know how everyone is annoyed that when you use public cloud, there are no budgets that you can say that like, please only bill my Amex card £100, and if it's more, than just delete everything. You actually can have sandboxes that are like included in your plan. So if you are always worried about using public cloud with your own credit card, this is a nice way. This is actually might save you, right? The meme training is $5.99. But you can come to me. So this is another one. This is another secret secret sauce of how we do training. Not everyone knows this. When I found, so Adrian Cantrell used to do courses for Linux Academy, and they were really good. I really enjoyed them. I remember taking I think my associate one quite a few years ago now. But then he, I think, left Linux Academy and he started his own thing on Teachable. It is, I cannot stress enough how good those courses are. They're not that expensive either. That's pretty good value for what you get. You can get the full bundle or all you can eat with all the future courses. I think he still sells that for like a quite expensive price, but you will get all future courses. But if you want to learn AWS, there is no better course than this. But it is only AWS. But if you want to get the specialties, you will have a security specialty soon too, published. This will teach you everything, and you can see how well the like diagrams and everything is done. And it's like so many hours. I don't know. I think it's like 100 hours of content. It is really good. Like highly recommend this one. Next thing, this is a different take on me and teaching like DevSecOps, right? So I think I'm gonna like retreat a little back. Why is this deck so security heavy when DevSecOps is classically just shift left security, put in some Terraform scanning, whatnot? Because I wanted to change. I wanted people to see how attackers actually work, how the SOC actually works, because quite often DevSecOps just translates to a sysadmin that kind of tracks the breaches and whatnot, right? I wanted to be more. I wanted to be involved in like this whole purple team with cloud skills. That's how I see the role. So try HackMe is a great way to get there. This is actually a live screenshot that I took from a course I did on it, which is Eternal Blue. Everyone probably remembers that exploit, how that was all pwned. So what you get on the left On the left, you can spin up a machine that's vulnerable, in this case, a Windows machine. And then on the right, you can even get, like, you can either use a VPN and get to the environment from your own Kali box, or on the right here that you see is their own, inside of the browser, a VM with all the hacking tools installed, where you can just go work through the lab on the left and hack on the right. It is amazing experience. Like, I wish I had that when I was like 16. Like, it's amazing. Like, this is so good if you want to have hands-on hacking skills and understand how like attackers actually work. Like, cannot rave about this enough. The other bit is HackTheBox, also a very similar one. It is a little bit more more geared to like intermediate to expert, because like those boxes are quite like OSCP level. Like you go into this thing where you just get an IP and you have to find flags. So essentially you have to gain root access on the box or administrative privileges and then submit the flag. So if you want to go there, also like a lot of interesting boxes, a lot of exploits. So if you want to do playgrounds and something different than watching videos, totally recommend this platform. So how to keep up to date? So come to meetups like this one, right? If you want to get up to date and know the latest things, that's one way. You can subscribe to newsletters, shameless plug there. You can browse Reddit. A very popular subreddit in terms of security is NetSec. There's a lot of other ones like hacking and whatnot. You can go on Twitter. You can subscribe to a lot of blogs. RSS is still very much alive. Don't give in into the Medium stuff. Like, use Feedly, use NetNewsWire if you're on a Mac. Be there. Discord community. So this is for Wild West Hacking Fest, which is a conference, I think, in US, or a thing. Discord. This is where all those people from IRC. IRC is kind of the whole drama that's happening now with LiberaChat. Go on Discord. Like, a massive community there. A lot of people. A lot of interesting conversations. A lot of kind of videos and kind of gatherings now. Kind of run a chat on Discord while they're doing it. So a lot of fun. YouTube really changed. Like, it used to be about jokes, but there's a lot of cool content right now. A lot of security companies put it out. Listen to podcasts like Risky Biz, Security Weekly. Like, if you don't want the news, you can like subscribe to Darknet Diaries. That's a new one that's popular. Maybe Twitch, right? Twitch is the thing. Like, there are a lot of hackers that are hacking live or going for concepts and just literally doing their own like presentations, right? So it's not just gaming. There's a lot of just people doing HackTheBox or try HackMe. Also, read books and track them on Goodreads. Like a lot of people just don't read books, and if you don't want to read, you can listen to books, as the ad you probably saw quite often. So that goes into all the kind of people stuff and whatnot. And now the special section of the enterprise. So, common problems with education in the enterprise. So this is my day job, right? Or was for quite a few months. So if you ever do a questionnaire about education, this is what are the common answers that you will get. One will be lack of time. I'm too busy. And you're like, but what are you busy? What are you busy with? Are you busy playing Minesweeper? Are you busy with something else? Are you busy like doing actual work? Or are you busy with something else? Well, so the common one is this: I have sprint commitments, right? We all work in sprints. We all love Agile. I have assigned 20 story points. Have to do them. Can't do anything else. Sorry, there's no story point for training, which is sad, right? I still have to do the same amount of work, right? Like, you go on training, you come back, and you're like, well, that's still your ticket. I'm not touching it. So you still end up then working long hours, right? Or people have like lives, after work. They might have like children, they might have spouses, they might just be burned out. They not like don't want to work more than 9 to 5. Those are like positions that people have, and like you can't expect that everyone will put in the time to learn after work. So The other bit is lack of clarity, right? So people don't know what to do, where to go, right? So no learning paths. There's no learning path in the organization for how to learn a particular skill or particular job role or anything else, right? Quite often you will see all this job posting, but there's no learning path. Like if you have a job posting, like explain what the role is. How do I learn the role, right? Particularly if you want someone else from inside of your business than outside to come in. And there's no information on how to buy the courses or anything else, right? I want to go get a cloud guru, but do I buy it? Do I expense it? Will I get refunded? There's no signposting, right? So the information might be somewhere there deep in a SharePoint, but you will never ever find it because you have to search for a special thing, right? So it will be like a full sadness thing, or just not relevant, right? It's like you might be a Terraform shop and all they're teaching you is like CloudFormation. It's just not relevant for your day to day. So why do you have like CloudFormation courses as something you're suggesting, right? So what does this result in? The training budgets that your organization might have might not be spent, might be unspent. That's actually a good place to be in, because if your budgets are always spent, then nobody can buy anything at all because you don't have a budget. So not too worse. Oh, and your training days are not utilized, right? So people are not actually learning. So the other dilemma is this: is what if we train them and they leave? What if we don't and they stay, right? So or the Dilbert comic, or the answer to this is what Richard Branson said. That's the quote: train people well enough so they can leave, treat them well enough so they don't want to, right? Invest in your, like, it's kind of like your regular relationships, right? Like, invest fully in those people, expect the best of your people, treat them well, and they won't leave. They will have that kind of loyalty, right? Like, I am extremely grateful for like all the opportunities I had for learning, and that kind of stays, right? Like, treat people well, and like, sure, like that's a very small investment. Even if you're like just looking for cost and positions, that is a really good investment. Just people are like, well, I'm learning here a lot, right? Like when people leave and we do exit interviews, it's very often like, well, I'm just not growing. I'm just doing the same thing, just writing the same Terraform. There's nowhere to expand, right? You always want to like grow. If there's no growth, people just stagnate and they're like, well, why, right? Unless it's just like, an easy ride. No, there's no point. And if it's an easy ride, something is wrong. Like you should have put in the automation. So don't do these things. Don't require writing business cases to managers to request training. That's a very big barrier to entry. Some people are shy, right? They will not do it. You need a lot of trust with your manager and everyone else. You don't really know. There's no examples of those business cases. You don't know if you're making a fool of yourself, if this is an allowed thing. I usually recommend that you don't have those kind of approaches. Don't generate like generic content. There's nothing where, oh, we just put out something about cloud and it's good enough. It's not good enough. It needs to be targeted, ripped to shred by your engineers. Don't have it generic. Your platform is not generic. Your company is not generic. You do specific things. Because there's a lot of topics to cover and you probably have some niches, right? Don't reuse your mandatory trading HR platforms. They are probably from, I don't know, the 90s. They are clicky-to-click things. They're not Java anymore, obviously, right? They moved on to HTML5. But like it's like you click a button, then you watch this animation. It makes you go postal, like literally. Like people do not like this. Do not do it to them. And whatever you do, don't send people on workshops that are not relevant, right? Training days are not holidays. Like, why are you sending your marketing department on a MongoDB course? Literally, I saw that happen. Don't do that. That makes no freaking sense. Do these things. Talk to engineers, how they currently learn and where they're struggling. I know, crazy ideas. Speak to people. Create learning paths based on what they do in their day-to-day jobs. People know how they got there, right? They can explain to you like, well, we do Terraform. This is our stack. These are kind of people I follow. Like, amazing. free thing. Like you just had to talk to people, right? You don't have to figure out, you don't have to be an expert in those technologies or anything else to create useful learning paths, right? Just talk to your engineers, talk to the experts, and they can help you create those. Build communities and practices, right? There's no way you can have like a learning function in your company that will like create all the learning and everything else. You want that to come from bottom up usually. You want to have like communities and practices and do that there, right? And then if you're buying like platforms, invest in the good ones, something like a Cloud Guru, like Safari Books Online, buy the enterprise plan, because then you will get all your metrics and your HR and whoever people who like require like tracking, how many certs we have, how well people are doing, are they ready to become like a senior cloud architect. This is where you can track all of that, right? So bonus tips. I hopefully Glenn actually likes the slide because I made this special for him, is the Kirkpatrick model. So if you want to evaluate, there's actually like thanks to me for that. There's actually a way to evaluate your organization training paths. And I actually didn't know that. So that's still new. I'm still learning, still reading it. But essentially, if you want to understand, so first you measure the reaction of people about the training program, the educator, like, is the educator kind of boring and just like monotone? Cloud formation is this? And you like just like give up, right? Then how much learning did they absorb it well? Did they achieve their outcomes? The next one is probably the one that I like the most in the model is the behavior, right? Did anything change? Did like them going on the scores change something, or did they go to their old patterns and just stopped learning, right? A lot of people just go on training and then never use those skills. And then it's like, well, the behavior didn't change, so you didn't get actually anything, right? And then the results. So this is where you measure your ROI on the training and everything else, like and your business model, right? Like, do we have now this amazing SRE team? So great model. I'm still learning more. Maybe like this is unknown for me. So it's gonna be fun. Maybe I will give another talk when I learn more. So tips to bring others. We're almost to the finish line. So this is not a plug. This is just how we do it in Contino. There's been 5 years of growth. It used to be just go expensive whatever you want. It's still pretty much like that. We created something called Continue. This is how we do it. I don't know if this is the best. I want to know if there's someone who's like has unlimited training budgets and how that works out. So we have 5K for everyone, not just engineers. If you're in marketing, you can also use it. We do 10 days for conferences and training. It's all self-service. You just go and expense it and expensify. We have a practice communities that I talked about, and other practices. We have people who do Oxford courses and get their MBAs because they want that leadership path. If you want to, the only kind of ask is that if you do a piece of training, particularly if it's an expensive training, is that you create some collateral, right? You at least tell other continues that like, is this good training? Was this worth it? Was it a waste of money? Like we know that there are courses that like by some training companies that we like just ban people from going because they're just a waste of time, even though they're marketed well. That being said, even with all of this, people still struggle for time and they don't really use up their budgets, right? So that's like, it's still a struggle, right? Like even with all of this self-service and everything else, it's still hard to actually go and do it. And like, even though it's encouraged, right? Because people like, learning growth is stepping out of your comfort zone properly. So that's pretty much it. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully it was entertaining as much as it was. And now we have the book giveaway.
So virtual claps.
Yeah, well done.